I had been away for what felt like an eternity. 2 long months spent traveling for work, with barely a moment to breathe, let alone enjoy the beauty of my lakeside cabin. The decision to take this trip had been a difficult one, knowing that I would be far from the peace and solitude of my home. My lakeside cabin, nestled on the edge of a serene lake, had always been a sanctuary, a place to recharge, to leave behind the noise of the world. But duty called, and I packed my bags, hoping that the days would pass quickly and that I would return to the familiar comfort of the cabin soon enough. The flight home seemed endless. Between layovers and the discomfort of cramped seats, my thoughts kept drifting to the peace of my lakeside retreat. I imagined the early morning mist that hovered over the water, the sound of birds singing in the trees, and the soothing rustle of the leaves in the wind. It was the place I could truly escape to. No interruptions, no demands. Just me and the lake. After what felt like an eternity, I finally found myself back at the airport, stepping off the plane with anticipation building in my chest. The ride from the airport to my cabin was quiet, just the hum of the engine and the occasional chirp of the tires on the smooth road. I'd missed the rural beauty of this area, the open fields, the towering trees, and the distant mountains that always seemed so tranquil. My excitement grew with every passing mile. As I turned onto the gravel road that led to my cabin, I could see the first glimpse of the lake shining in the distance, framed by the dense woods that surrounded it. The sight filled me with warmth. The feeling of being home was almost overwhelming. I pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of the cabin coming into full view. It looked just as I remembered it. The rustic wooden exterior, the large deck with the rocking chairs that overlooked the lake, and the stone fireplace that always provided warmth on chilly evenings. It was perfect as always. The smell of pine trees filled the air as I opened the car door, stretching my legs after the long journey. I made my way inside, taking a moment to breathe in the quiet. It felt so still, so calm. I dropped my bags on the floor and walked toward the windows, pulling back the heavy curtains to let in the sunlight. But something was off. There was an unfamiliar sound, one that didn't belong in the stillness of the cabin. I listened intently, hearing voices outside, faint but distinct. It was a strange occurrence. I hadn't expected anyone to be here. There was no reason for anyone to be around. My neighbors were a mile or so away, and I had never been one to entertain guests at the cabin. The voices grew louder as I walked toward the door, and I opened it slowly, stepping out onto the porch. There, across the yard, I saw her, Karen. I recognized her immediately. She lived 2 doors down, an overly involved member of the homeowners association, known for her relentless meddling in everyone's business. Karen was standing near the fence, her back to me, staring out at the lake as if she owned the place. I watched her for a moment, trying to make sense of the situation. Why was she here? And what was she doing on my property? My gut instinct told me something wasn't right. I called out to her, my voice carrying across the open space. "Karen, what are you doing here?" She turned, startled, as if she hadn't expected me to return so soon. Her face turned pale for a moment, but she quickly composed herself and offered a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, you're back. I didn't expect you so soon," she said, her voice too cheerful, too forced. I raised an eyebrow, unsure of how to respond. "Well, I'm here now," I replied, glancing around. There was no reason for Karen to be here. She had no reason to visit, no reason to be on my property. "Oh, I just thought I'd stop by and check on things," Karen said, her smile widening. "You know, the cabin's been sitting empty for so long. Just making sure everything's okay." I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Karen had always been a bit too nosy for my liking. She had a reputation for poking around, especially when it came to properties in the neighborhood. Her involvement with the HOA wasn't just about maintaining order. It was about control, about keeping tabs on everyone's business. And something about her being here, so unexpectedly, just didn't sit right with me. I nodded, not fully believing her story. "I appreciate the concern, but there's no need for you to check on things. I'm here now and everything's fine." But as I spoke, I noticed something strange. Karen wasn't leaving. She was lingering, standing there as if she was waiting for something or someone. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Then, as if on cue, My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. It was a message from my neighbor, Dave, who lived a few houses down. His message was simple but alarming. "Hey, I just saw your cabin listed online for rent. What's going on? Did you put it up?" My heart dropped. Rent? I hadn't listed my cabin for rent. It was supposed to be my retreat, my sanctuary, and yet someone was advertising it online as if it were a vacation home. I immediately opened the message and saw the link to the listing. It wasn't just a casual mention. It was an entire profile for my cabin, with details, photos, and rental prices. I glanced back at Karen, who was still standing near the fence. My stomach churned. Could she be behind this? "You listed my cabin for rent?" I asked, my voice rising. Karen's eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of panic. "What? No, I didn't do that," she stammered, but the words didn't feel genuine. I could tell she was lying. I felt a surge of anger and confusion. I had just returned home, expecting to relax and unwind, and here I was, standing in front of the very person who might have betrayed my trust. I hadn't even been home an hour, and already, my cabin had been listed without my permission. The thought of someone taking advantage of my absence, especially Karen, who had always had a controlling interest in the neighborhood, filled me with frustration. "I'm going to look into this," I said coldly, "and I'll be back to talk to you about it later." I turned and walked back into the cabin, my mind racing with possibilities. As I closed the door behind me, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Karen was up to something, and I was determined to figure out exactly what it was. The next few hours were filled with an unsettling calm. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Karen's reaction to the listing, her attempt to deny any involvement, only made me more suspicious. I spent the remainder of the afternoon pacing the cabin, scrolling through the listing, trying to understand how it had even happened. The listing was too detailed. It had photos I'd never seen before, a price that seemed far too high for the area, and a description that made the place seem more like a luxury vacation rental than my quiet lakeside retreat. It was obvious someone had been there, photographing the cabin, probably going through the rooms, using my personal items to sell a story that wasn't theirs to tell. I needed answers. I couldn't just sit back and let Karen get away with this, not after everything she'd done. I grabbed my phone and called Dave. "I'm heading over there," I said quickly, my voice tight. "Stay put and don't let anyone into the cabin." "I'll keep an eye on it," Dave assured me. "Let me know if you need anything." I hung up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out the door, my footsteps quick and determined. I was going to confront Karen. I had no other choice. As I made my way down the gravel road to her house, I could feel the tension building. This wasn't going to be a casual conversation. This wasn't going to be one of those polite, neighborly chats that I had hoped for when I first moved to the cabin. No, this was going to be a confrontation. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. Karen's house was just a short walk away. I arrived at her front door and knocked loudly. The sound echoed through the still afternoon air. There was a brief moment of silence before Karen appeared at the door, her face slightly flushed, her expression a mix of confusion and annoyance. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice too calm, too neutral. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "About my cabin." Karen's eyes flickered briefly, and I could see a glimmer of recognition. She knew exactly what I was talking about, but she quickly masked it with a thin smile. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, shaking her head. "I haven't done anything with your cabin." I couldn't let her lie her way out of this. "The cabin's listed online, Karen, with photos, details, everything. You've been showing it off like it's yours. Don't pretend you didn't know." At that, Karen's smile faltered. "I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone else listed it." Cut the crap, Karen," I interrupted, stepping closer to her. "This isn't the first time you've meddled in people's business. I know you're involved somehow. You've been poking around my cabin when I've been gone, haven't you?" Her face hardened, but she refused to admit anything. "I don't know what you're accusing me of, but I'm not responsible for what happened with your listing. I had nothing to do with it." But I could tell from her eyes, the nervous darting to the side, the quickening of her breath, that she was lying. I knew she was hiding something. She wasn't going to get away with it. You expect me to believe that? I asked, crossing my arms. You've been trying to get people to rent out properties around here, haven't you? And my place was just another one on the list, wasn't it? Karen's face tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might snap. But instead, she took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping as if she was about to give up. She didn't, though. She only smiled a cold, calculated smile. You really don't know what you're dealing with, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Before I could respond, Karen suddenly pulled out her phone and dialed 911. I'm being harassed, she said into the phone, her voice shaking with what sounded like feigned fear. There's a man here at my house, threatening me. He's yelling at me, and I don't know what he's capable of. I froze for a moment, shocked by her audacity. She was calling the police on me? Just like that. In that instant, everything clicked into place. She wasn't just trying to get away with listing my cabin. She was trying to make me look like the villain, the one who was causing trouble. She was playing the victim, hoping the authorities would back her up and get me off her case. Are you seriously doing this? I asked, disbelief in my voice. You're making a scene because I caught you. You've crossed the line, and I'm not putting up with it, she shot back, her voice now full of confidence. You've been threatening me, and I won't let you get away with it. I'm protecting myself. The 911 operator came on the line, and Karen quickly explained her version of events, painting me as a dangerous individual. She even went as far as to tell them that I had been following her, harassing her for weeks, though none of it was true. I stood there in stunned silence as she spoke, realizing how far she was willing to go to manipulate the situation. I needed to get ahead of this, fast. I'm not going anywhere, I said firmly. The truth will come out, and when it does, you'll be the one in trouble, Karen. Within minutes, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. I stayed put, determined not to let her win. When the police arrived, they were calm but cautious, assessing the situation. Karen immediately started telling her side of the story, her voice shaking with emotion. But I didn't let her control the narrative. I spoke up, explaining everything, how my cabin had been listed, how I had confronted her, and how she had called the police as a diversion. The officers listened carefully, and after a brief exchange, it was clear they didn't believe Karen's version of events. They could see through the manipulation. Ma'am, one of the officers said to Karen, it seems like there's been a misunderstanding here. We're going to need to look into this further. Karen's expression changed from fear to fury as the police began to ask her questions about the listing. The jig was up. She had been caught in her own web of lies. In the end, Karen's actions had caught up with her. The police found enough evidence to suggest that she had been involved in the fraudulent listing of my property, and her reputation within the HOA was severely tarnished. As for me, I finally got my cabin back, and Dave helped me take it offline, ensuring that it was no longer listed for rent. The whole ordeal had been exhausting, but as I stood on the deck of my cabin, watching the sun set over the lake, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Karen might have tried to ruin my peace, but in the end, the truth had won out.